Breaking news! A scientist has confirmed that some individuals can smell the rain coming. University clarified that ozone possesses a distinctive odor, not as earthy as petrichor, but equally recognizable, serving as a scent indicator for an approaching storm. Ozone bubbles pushed down by approaching storm winds reach ground level, allowing us to detect their scent. Can you smell the rain coming? Follow for more daily news. Talking Fish out.
Hello and good evening to everyone out there in the world. This is the lovely and beautiful Miss Kyoko, the brown sugar queen who cosplay hostess with the mostest, and the Black Crystal Jem who performs. Yes, and shines so bright you cannot dim her. And welcome to one of my mini platforms on YouTube, the Daystar Voyage. Yes, like, comment, and subscribe. This is a channel that's going to be regarded and talking about rants, discussions on entertainment media and pop culture, be it from animation and also Japanimation, you know, aka anime for such matter. And I hope everyone out there like, comment, and subscribe because there's so much going on with this channel that's going to be so great and astronomically beautiful and spaced out and wild and whimsical. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and make sure to check out my channel. Okay, now we got that intro out of the way. I would like to thank you, every last subscriber, and everyone else out there who was willing to just click that like button, subscribe to my channel, and also positively comment on my videos throughout. And as a pretty much an LGBT etc. person, me for example, gender fluid person for that matter, who does like drag and cosplay, it really helps out my channel because I am so thankful to be able to at least gainer like a small crowd, even though like my channel is a little bit on the underrated niche side. I am truly thankful to just do this for out of the love and just like the passion for fashion and also for the heart and soul of it all. And I like to put myself out there so I can be able to just like reach out to other people who feel the same way as I do about today's animation affecting our world and media as such, and how it could be a positive outlook to other people or give like insight towards new or old viewers who are just rewatching a certain show, and then have a huge perspective and also much more greater outlook and proper perspective of what we watch. And it's also been nowadays people would like to just put like more activism and woke culture wise work into their animation nowadays too. But back in the day when we see like a lot of characters who were pretty much just of that origin, you didn't see it back in like the 70s or 80s and 90s because of pretty much how much controversy they'll be put throughout, or pretty much how they're supposed to follow a certain type of gender stereotype, which is understandable. We've been star craved and also craving and starving for certain types of those LGBT etc. aspects throughout pop culture ever since those decades and centuries and years ago throughout. Now, you may be wondering why I decided to make this video called The Masculinization of Noceda. It's because at certain times we didn't need to see her pretty much be much more of her feminine side, because you see so many great like Hispanic culture has so many great fashions and also gender fluid like clothing that could have accoutrement Noceda herself. And I wish that the staff and creators could have gone a lot more deeper with like her clothing and also her neurodivergence. There's no excuse for like bad fashion taste, and also her being like non-binary, because a lot of non-binary people that I see throughout my whole years have experimented with like the color palettes and fashion to the point where like they know who they truly are if they want to dress femme or masculine or any other type of gender for that matter. And I really did feel like they kind of cater towards the entity's hyper-feminine qualities. And like the person that I am, I like to open up about the flaws and criticisms about this, because this too comes with its critiques and also flaws of how she was perceived throughout the whole show, and how we should take a really deeper good look of how her diaspora was pretty much put into from coming from Earth to the Boiling Isles, which is also the purpose of her finding a new family and whatnot in the story. Because just like when I discussed about it in my other video where I discussed about Luz's character analysis, her being like the designated bad lady because she had so much baggage throughout the whole show, I do feel like they kind of pretty much downplayed her trauma and also her depression to be it like very kid friendly-ish, if that makes sense, and I'm trying to articulate it well, because like trauma and depression and also going through a lot of anxiety is nothing to play with. And I really did felt like the staff and the writers did not really do a good job of her doing that, because like realism really does take effect to like these certain situations, and that you should have to properly write it well to the point where like it could be something that people can relate to and also be put out to real life situations, how you could just help other people throughout. And also there's like a really good Tumblr message that pretty much discussed about it, because of her just being like having her handed everything throughout the whole show, and it was awarded through her because of her impulsive and unpredictable and just like nonchalant and ambivalent attitude, the way she carries herself and how she wants to have like the selfless attitude of helping out others and be awarded to as such, and also of how she can be able to just like pout and moan and groan about certain situations not going her way. Just like when I discussed about our other video of Designated Bag Lady character analysis of Lucida, which also y'all should watch too, because that has so much insightful manners of how she should act towards real life and how she could pretty much destroy her whole relationship with Amity and her found family throughout. And this coming from like her diaspora, which is also a word I'll be using throughout this 8-minute part. I do feel like we never got to see like her cultural background and also her Hispanic cuisine ethnicities pretty much put throughout the whole Boiling Isles, and also how Camila raised herself to be able to just like say like Hispanic cuisine and also heritage is celebrated this way, to the point where like people can just relate to this character and not treat it like such as a lab rat or a test subject if like people found her strange or weird, even though that the main cast and supporting cast of characters that we always see that are so popular throughout social media are basically of humanoid shape or have like witch or elven-like features though, which are called witches though. And it kind of throws me off because like the diaspora could play such a big part in the show, in which like Lucida could have contributed to an episode to which like we could tell from like so many differentiations of like Boiling Isle citizens, be it from a certain pretty standard they had to live throughout the whole Boiling Isles, or having to be able to just like have a magical or power system in which like they contribute to like the landmass, or having a proper class or system, caste system or classism system to dedicate themselves to like showing that they're not all pretty or ugly or feminized or masculinized. That could have been like proper good LGBT representation for that matter. And I feel like Lucida could have had an episode where she's trying to learn acceptance and tolerance of different monsters. It could have gave so much good closure of how Lucida didn't see herself as different as other people, and also that all that glitters isn't actually gold on the Boiling Isles, because she wants to live out her whole fantasy world throughout this whole world that she ever dreamed of ever since she was a young kid, and she's been feeling like bullied or ostracized. I didn't say bullied loosely, because bully, she was pretty much ostracized, just avoided at all costs, and also she didn't know how to like make friends. And I blame that because like her neurodivergence should have been addressed thoroughly well throughout the first episode, or even throughout the whole pitch Bible as such too. And all of this diaspora talk is just like a missed opportunity to be able to feel like Lucida is like not like other people herself too also. And it really did felt like they could have had a proper episode which they discovered like the creatures and species of the Boiling Isles. But that's just me now. That's just me. Now, we're gonna get down to this segment of the first segment, of which I like to call the masculinization of black women. Yes. Now, you may be wondering why this has to do with Lucida herself, because she is a woman, she is a female gender, and not to mention she is black and of Latin heritage, so she's mixed. So we're gonna get down to this in a moment. So let's get into this. So pop some popcorn, unlock the topic with a key, and come sip some tea with me. Let's get into this first segment.
You are now one of my elite employees. You missed some trash over there, honey.
Now, the masculinization of black women itself. Why I decided to choose that segment for this video, right? Throughout the years, we are known that pretty much black women have suffered so much scrutiny ever since throughout the slave years and so on, 24/7 throughout, and even in this era also. And this has come from like the 1900s, throughout the 70s and 80s and 90s, and so on, from throughout pulp culture, history, and also in today's media. Now, why I decided to say that Luz is pretty much masculinized is because we see throughout the whole decade a turning point throughout social media, pulp culture, the negative aspects of how pretty much black women, or also females for that matter, are being degraded and depicted as nothing but as unruly, tomboyish, rough African features that don't even perceive as such as us as delicate or just unrefined or just mannerless or just like classist for that matter. And I do feel like in today's world, we get so much degradation and scrutiny for not living up a certain standard of perfection as is such as a white person for that matter. And this is taking effect towards like animation too also. And this comes to like effect towards like the most popular character within shows. Another trope that needs to be shot down is the tokenism within the shows or favorite media. We used to see back in the day like a lot of like of our heritage from African features being celebrated, being as beautiful and radiant. When it comes to like anime, in today's world, they do a really good job of like depicting black people with many different styles and intricate designs that pretty much suit us well. In Luz's case, I do feel like there's a lot work to be done because this is also another take in like woke culture taking effect towards like our protagonist, how we perceive as a masculine African POC character being like not celebrated for like her femininity and not exploring it. Because let me tell you now, I will never let that hideous ballet outfit down whatsoever. It's one of the most hideous outfits ever. And you can check out on my mini blogs on Tumblr and discussing about it too also, as how Luz should have been dressed up as a POC character as such, and it could have gone so much of exploring her own feminine features and her African and Latina features as such too also in an ethnicity. Because some POC fans are going to get like the raw message and say to themselves, oh, that's how it's supposed to be perceived as such in that manner. Because god dang well, be it from personality or fashion wise, neurodivergence does not excuse like bad behavior or bad fashion sense. Because back in the day, we had so many great, bold, beautiful colors that pretty much complemented our skin tone, our heritage, and the way pretty much how they dressed Lucida. They could have had someone else that give better insight of intuition how to dress her character as such. Because when you see Amity or Willow for that matter, you see they're pretty much all priced up, having a good art directive and fashion sense and color palette that suit them well compared to Lucida herself. You have the girl Luz dressed up as some wannabe rapper that's never made it out of her own town, and I feel like that's another product of the masculinization of Lucida herself too. It's like the show never gave her a chance to be much more hyper feminine or much more feminine or experiment with her own dang heritage or ethnic features for that matter too. And the staff didn't do a good job of that too also. And it's just a migraine at this point. And I said, I love the show, but the show gets on my freaking nerves. So that's why I decided to write fanfics. But anyway, back to the own subject. I'll be bringing up an article in a minute of how pretty much we're going to be perceived as such throughout media and also in real life, and how this incorporates too also with this article that I found right here. So let's go. By Nubian Message, The Masculinization of Black Women. Serena Williams, Francine Nayasaba, Megan Thee Stallion, and Michelle Obama. What do all of these black women have in common? They all have been hyper-masculinized by today's society. Black women have been constantly hyper-masculinized by society and the media. There has been a pushback against these comments and narratives in recent years by the black community. These comments are usually from men who are intimidated or have been rejected by black women. Serena Williams, who is the greatest tennis player of all time, has been consistently harassed and berated for not being feminine enough because she is more muscular and more compete competitively with any gender. Francine Nayasaba, who is the second highest ranked woman in the world for the 800-meter race, was disqualified for having too high natural testosterone levels in her system. Her options were to either have treatment to alter her hormones, compete in the men's race, or run a longer race like the 5,000-meter race. There have been claims that women from African countries have higher levels of naturally occurring testosterone. However, there is not enough scientific evidence to back this claim up. These claims are stemming from the fact that most of the women who are identified for sex testing by athletics officials come from this region. This rule created by the World Athletics Association regulates the amount of naturally occurring testosterone levels in female athletes. This rule is rooted in anti-black feminism and black trans misogyny, which is the intersection of transphobia and misogyny as experienced by black trans women or trans feminine people of all any other color for that matter. Now pay attention to this now. Dr. Candice Norcott, a licensed clinical psychologist who focuses on gender-responsive trauma-informed service delivery and adolescent mental health and wellness, was invited to the Red Table Talk, where she discusses why black women are hyper-masculinized by society. Oh, mouthful much. She says that the reason that these comparisons to men and the feminization occur is that we do not fit the default mold. The default for black is black men, and the default for women and femininity is white women. So, because we do not fit in this default, society begins to make us invisible. An example of this is when you get called the name of the only other black girl in your class or in your workspace when you look nothing alike. Now pay attention to that quote now and that whole paragraph that I just said. This regarding towards black characters, how they're protected in media and also animation. Throughout history, darker skinned black women have always been perceived demonized, and looked as men for the features that they have and the qualities they embody. Black women have negatively been seen as strong, competitive, aggressive, and loud, all qualities that society says that women should not have because our society has been and continues to be run by white men. Their views have been systematically placed in our society. They believe that women should be the complete opposite of them in nature, meaning quiet, docile people who they can control, and it is our lack of proximity to whiteness that makes us non-feminine. As subsets of gender and gender expression, femininity and masculinity are both social constructs. How society's views and defines these concepts differ across cultures and across history. One large issue with society has when looking at these concepts is that they believe that sex, gender, and gender expression are direct correlations of each other when that is not the case. People need to begin to really reflect on their intentions with their words and how they address and comment on black women. Most compliments made towards black women, especially dark-skinned black women, are not complimented at all. They are rooted in colorism and racism. Some examples of this are, I love me some dark chocolate, the darker the berry, the sweeter the juice, and you are pretty for a black girl. Which that darker the berry, the sweeter the juice quote is by Tupac also too, like the song Keep Your Head Up. If you don't catch that reference. When talking to black women, you should take a moment to think, am I comparing them to food? Am I talking about their hair in a negative manner? Do my comments perpetuate racist and colorist stereotypes? If they do, then stop and rethink what you have to say. It is not difficult to treat black women with the respect that they deserve. Oh, that was a mouthful. Now back to the
And
segment.
it is a well-known fact that you see like white characters being the most popular characters within the show, or even like a mixed white person being like the most popular ethnicity, second to none for a white person of character or a Caucasian character for that matter. And this has been going out throughout because this fandom has a weird way of how pretty much POC characters are perceived as such, be it from darker color to like medium colored or either ethnic color for that matter too. Not to mention the fact of the LGBT etc. Sexuality being defined as the only proper thing that people discuss about nowadays over like good writing for like your favorite series or franchise. And that's the ending of this segment. Now let's get on to the next one. Y'all gonna make me work on this one. Let me tell you now, when it comes down to this segment, fashion, features, and feminism, let me tell you now, we never got we never got to see Luz and Cita be as feminine as possible to a certain degree. They literally have us showing the dresses, but yet not having Luz wear the dresses in certain episodes, or just like not her feminine prominent features being like never come up again. LGBT, etc. people, for that matter, they go to like when they're being born, they go into like a state where like they know they have to define themselves throughout their fashion, their features, what they are, whether they're looking in the mirror, having their own physical perspective, or having to be able to be in a friend group in which like they're pretty much as a duff for that matter, also known as the designated ugly fat friend for that matter. And that also takes to effects of how you're supposed to be physically perceived and like throughout your whole lifetime, and it plays onto your like your mindset of how you should be looking to like your inner self, how to learn self-love and also be self-conscious for that matter too, and break away from that chain of self-consciousness. Also, I for one have been down that road to myself in which like I try to experiment with my own fashion before, ever since like learning about cosplay and also anime itself from a very young age. I used to set with like myself with like mute colors that did not suit myself very well. But ever growing up, I finally see like experimenting with like different fabrics and patterns that go on well to myself. I for one, however, I didn't feel like they did that with like Luz and Cita herself too also, because let me tell you now, they do my girl so wrong in this show to the point where like they have her looking like I said, some ballerina ringmaster that's never gonna have a sold out circus whatsoever. Or her feminine Afro-Latina features being dumbed down to the point of that Lord knows, God knows, whatever you believe in, like Go, Pokemon Go hairstyle, helmets. It's giving hell and it's giving hair mitts for all I care. And I just could not stand it though, ever since we're watching the whole show. I kid you not. And I wish, for certain points, give me fan art to see Luz and Cita with like long hair. Long, straight, curly, kinky hair for that matter. Like we said in that epilogue season though. Just please, fan artists. But anyway, besides all that, I really did felt like they kind of watered her down to like her features from being darkened or lightened in some different art styles or in some posters, and then being like freaking dang lighter in like certain episodes and darkened. Heck, even to the point where like she's the most lightest noceda compared to like Camila and Manny. And that's not okay. And that also from like the lighting and also the shadowing, depending on like the night and day aspect also too. But besides all that, Luz should have had a better closet compared to like any other girls within that show and series. And it's absolutely not okay how they dumbed down her fashion to just like being near divergence. Because we as black people, we have so many great features about ourselves, which I think that the staff should have taken more consideration of how to pretty much paint up an Afro-Latina character, and they should have pretty much had like a better staff writer do Luz's fashion. And to pass on as good cultural appreciation and representation for that matter, which I felt they failed. But if they could have had experimented with Hispanic fashion and many different shades and patterns that go on Lucida's body. Even authentic writers take more better insight how to draw like a properly written black character is not okay at all, because there could have been so many great insights of how to culturally complement Lucida's character and also her fashion too as such, and also give her much more of like Hispanic background and culture throughout that matter too. And this going to like pretty much put into like the boiling house itself. But that's another subject coming up for another matter too, the diaspora fashion of it all. But yes, I want to pretty much put up this another article that I pretty much wanted to just bring up in a moment right now. So we're gonna get to that soon enough. Go. From a website called Me Fader, the exploring the masculinization of black women. It is no shock that black women endure a lot of harsh treatment. From over-sexualization to complete degradation, it is exhausting being one of us, including, according to the dictionary, masculinization is defined as an act of labeling an individual's appearance or character as masculine because it does not define feminine standards. There is an imagery-extensive rule book that has rules of what it is to be a woman and feminine. However, today women are throwing and burning that book proudly. Women are cutting their hair short, wearing what feels right, and vocalizing their needs and wants. If you're not sure what masculinization looks like in action, here are some scenarios for context. Okay, women in power. This scenario is featured in multiple TV shows and movies. It usually happens to women who are in leadership. Usually leaders have a definition of power, assertive, and vocal. Unfortunately, these characteristics correlate to men only. Women are often overlooked and disrespected in male-dominant professions. There are many women who make attempts to set their boundaries and demand respect. Unfortunately, it is not taken into gravity and is ignored. Society perceives femininity as delicate, emotion-laden, and weaker than the masculine force. At times, women feel the need to adopt masculine tendencies to gain respect. Women who are direct and persistent are often villainized by their male counterparts within the workplace. When women are villainized, it's often done to strip the woman's feminine quality that she may have. It is a deeper concept that questions the definition of femininity. Beauty standards. It is known fact that many of today's beauty standards stem from an Eurocentric perspective. Through the age of colonialism, the Eurocentric customs were making their impact on many continents in the world. Today, those customs and ideals are being pushed onto women daily, as we see many countries sell a bleaching cream to remove dark spots from certain parts of your body. The beauty industry brings in millions of dollars a year off of people trying to cover or fix their insecurities. There are hundreds of magazines that show beautiful women the transition to inclusivity as move forward. Alternatively, the ideas have not disappeared. The magazine will show women fully waxed, smooth skin, medium skin tone, and long hair. There is the idea that women are supposed to be delicate, smooth, and soft. Unfortunately, dark skin, bald, plus size, non-shaven, acne-prone women are not in the category of desirable. Women receive a copious amount of feedback for cutting their hair, not shaving, and any other imperfection that society told us to erase or fix. Every woman has their own definition of beauty. Tone policing. Black women are not given the right to express anger. Women become masculinized and demonized for stating their anger paired with yelling. The unrealistic expectation that women should remain calm in a disrespectful situation is absurd. For example, a Good Morning Britain Dr. Shola Maz Shogbamu, which I hope I'm pronouncing that right, Shogmabamimu, explained to Piers Morgan how the royal family perpetuates racism and white supremacy that dates back to the beginning of their monarch. Piers Morgan accused Dr. Shola of race baiting with her retort, Morgan at one point interpreted Dr. Shula. Piers Morgan is not the first man to invalidate a woman who expresses her thoughts eloquently. A woman with passion is not an aggressive one. Sadly, being direct and assertive with no yelling can induce tone policing. Never tell a woman to calm down and change their tone. It results in an invalidation of their thoughts and emotions. Black women transcend any beauty standards, social whims, and patriarchal ideas. They can be sexy, smart, assertive, or subject to none at all. Masculinization does not define us. Now, you may be wondering why I decided to read all of this from this exact page by MeFader.com, right? Because it has something to incorporate towards all how pretty much black anime or Western cartoon characters are perceived as. Now back to action. Now, I decided to serve y'all some tea and some crumpets with that side of an article because that's an important fact that celebrity worship takes an effect towards us because we want to have that picture-perfect imagery of what we could not have in real life, and we take like that celebrity worship aspect into like animation, and that's why we get so much dang troublesome aspects within like fandom circles and also moments in like toxicity. And it's absolutely not okay how we just put it into like a certain place in which like we can see each other in like certain main characters and our favorite medias and shows. But however, don't take it to the point where like you just want off somebody off or just keyword somebody else if they don't live up to the freaking standards or the certain plots. And that's absolutely not okay. Now, getting really tired, so I hope you like and comment, subscribe because this is the last one, and we're gonna get down to the nitty-gritty of it all. And that is what we call a celebrity worship aspect, the negative portion of it all. Now onward to the next article, in which we like to call Honestly, being a gamer myself, I do see myself picking like the female characters because they captivated me with a lot more of their female curves and their attributes and their personality compared to the male characters. Why I say that is because I see so many positive impact of how pretty much female characters in video games have made the standpoint and how they're like cultural icons such as like you have Chun-Li from Street Fighter, or pretty much freaking Cammy herself too also, which I like to commemorate and commend people for doing that. And all the rest of the female characters cast, which I can get to that in a minute. However, the ugly aspects take a rise lately ever since like YouTubers were calling that stuff out. And I'm so glad we get positive reinforcement back in the day of gaming to like have like people that we can relate to. And be at that drawn and depicted is absolutely great. From what we see nowadays, makes no sense of how to uglify girls to the point where like they're non-recognizable or not depicted as like the model, given like inspiration as such, and it's absolutely not okay. And this uprising has come to because of woke culture and cancel culture taking the root towards people of not living up to beauty standard for that matter in real life. And I feel like that's becoming a detriment to other people if they can't seek that type of perfectionate physical attribute that they do have, and they want to go out of their way, people in general, even incels, of their way to just like cancel people who don't live up to a beauty standard in like video games, or just like uglify a certain model of a character, even on a random game system. And I bring up this article too that I pretty much want to get down to, so here I go. Often when women express interest in stereotypically male masculine activities, they are badgered with multiple questions and tests to prove their knowledge or an expertise in the field. To some, these are innocent questions, but having experienced this ritual frequently, I can confidently say they are not, especially in gaming. I've never necessarily felt welcome in expressing my love for video games. If my gaming interests were not overly questioned, then they were trivialized for not being hardcore enough. On the other hand, if my interests were being queried, then my status as a woman was suddenly elevated and other girls were to follow in my footsteps, whether these men want to acknowledge it or not. Now this goes for animation and also how men are treated compared to women in anime or animation too also. Their utter disregard for the legitimacy of feminine interests is misogyny, and this misogyny often present in the gaming sphere is especially sinister. Although the glaring misogyny in the gaming sphere has always been clear to me, the violence accompanying it was not. The misogyny in the gaming sphere often means far more than hating or doubting women. It encapsulates a personal and blazing resentment. My question is, why has this community retained and spawned men with a strong and violent disdain for women? It is The Geek, the complete abhorrence and aversion of the women-female presence in the gaming community often accompanies certain identities many of us would be familiar with. These identities, as those that embody them, are often referred to as the nerds and geeks. These men display a verse of masculinity characterized by the saviness of technology and video games. Term geek masculinity tends to disavow stereotypically masculine interests and traits, making those who ascribe to this identity tend to feel marginal, or they usually lack in what society would consider manly. Despite this perceived marginality and lack, it still upholds patriarchal values of female aptitude and male superiority. Now, I'm so glad you gave that a good read, and why I say this because you get to see so many of like nowadays video game female characters from the Western audience being like just like uglified to the point where like people can't be able to live up to a certain standard of that beauty as such, and I feel like that's taking root towards animation too also, and that's gonna become an ill effect because that's gonna hurt like pretty much a franchise or a show series pockets and also money and currency for that matter too, and that's absolutely just horrendous and just unacceptable for that matter. And poor actress who did that Star Wars outlaw thing, even though I don't want Star Wars for that matter, but I do pray for herself for how much scrutiny she's getting too also. And I better not bully her for it too also. Now, that comes to the conclusion for my video. I hope everyone out there comes to like the conclusion of how pretty much we could do a lot more better, or not animated POC characters are pretty much depicted as such, and that we should be able to give a chance to like have like a reflection in ourselves just to be and pretty, and look beyond that and say to ourselves that we are beautiful the way we are, and that you can fix our hair or your nails the way you want to on certain times, be more feminine, masculinity, LGBT, etc. Period. You are the needy greens, you're getting your greens and your aspect. Make sure you comment, like, and subscribe to my channel as such. I hope you have a good one. Enjoy yourselves. I am off to just like nap, sleep, do whatever I can just to better myself too also. And you have a wonderful evening. And thank you for this astronomical, wild, whimsical ride with Kyoko Kane of the Daystar Voyage. Thank you.